Welcome to the Clubhouse with a review of the Bandai non-scale Weissritter, the newest entry in Bandai's Super Robot Wars original mecha branch of the high-grade line. It's been over 3 years since the Alteisen was released, and more than a few of us had actually given up hope that they'd actually finish off the ATX Project pair, but out of nowhere, Bandai decides to complete this duel, and here we are. And just like the Alteisen, this isn't the first model kit of this design, with Kotobukiya having released a version of this way back in 2006, and for all this time, that kit has been the representation of the Weissritter. But with this kit, Bandai gives us a refresh of the design that's done by Masami Obari. The HG Weissritter is a non-scale kit just like all the other releases in the Super Robot Wars HG line, though all these kits are basically 1/144 size, so I don't know why they don't just write that down on the box. It was released on March 8, 2025 and initially sold for a price of 4,500 yen before taxes. The box art is of course drawn by Masami Obari, who has so far done the honors for all the Super Robot Wars HG releases, and this is very welcome by fans. There are no small kits in the line, and the Weissritter comes in a massive 31 by 20 by 12 cm box, keeping on the tradition of really big and beefy packages. The short side of the box has the now familiar SRW layout of the information rearranged from the front of the box, and the other side is exactly the same. The long side has a lot of room, but really only has 3 studio pics of the different weapons that you can have here, and the other side has a front and a back shot along with some flavor text of the mecha itself and a bit on excellent browning before giving us all the legal text. Inside the box, the Weissritter comes to us across 12 runners, and like every other Super Robot Wars HG kit, this does not have any polycaps. For the second time after the Gunpla, the Weissritter also comes with an Action Base 7 instead of the older Action Base 4, so it seems that this is what will be bundled with these kits now going forward. We get a sheet of foil stickers with these here for the eyes, and these ones here for the vents on the chest. These here for the center of the shoulders for the front and back on both sides. These blue ones here are for the gauntlet of the left arm. These black ones are for the trench details on the front skirts. This blue one goes onto the grip of the long rifle. And these brown ones go onto the side of the magazine. Then this huge blue one is for the barrel of the gun. For the instructions, we have the flavor text and all the parts and weapons crammed onto the back page that goes with the color guide, and that frees up more of the color pages for assembly instructions, which take up the rest of this side. The black and white side is all for assembly instructions, as you'd expect. After a little under 3 hours, we have the Weissritter all put together like this. If you've gotten used to the Kotobukiya Weissritter after all these years, you're gonna feel a pretty big whiplash with this new kit. Whereas the Kotobukiya one has given us a really stocky and very wide design where you can see this is built off the guest pens, this new HG kit rebalances that shape so it's not so bottom heavy. Though it still takes care and really isn't anything you'd call slim, it's still very thick and muscular looking. All Super Robot Wars HG kits are amazingly colored, and this kit does not disappoint. Sure, we saw with the stickers that a number of places do need some patching up, mostly on the gun, though also the black lines on the front skirts here, but what they did get done here without stickers is really crazy. This kit takes a design dotted all over with small yellow details like the ones on the shoulders here, and the bits of red too like this one on the chest, and it gets it all done with confidence. There's nothing half-hearted here. They really did try to get all the colors in with plastic, and all that jumping back and forth between the white and the blue really didn't trip them up. And just to show off their skills even more, bits like the insides here of the vents are colored in black too on the shoulders. Now, if we were to nitpick, there are angles from which you can look at this kit and the coloring can look a little patchy, like if you look at the inside of the shoulder armors here. There are bits of the assembly that shows and the colors here are nonsensical, but you can see that's really stretching the edges of any reasonable expectations. I suppose maybe the bottom of the feet here would be a valid complaint, and the colors here really are a little bit strange and patchy, but at the same time, all the details are here, so if you did color this, it would look great. The inner surfaces are all detailed in fact, like the armor here on the ankle that's fully lined with details on the inner surface, and the back skirt, the same deal. Heck, all the skirt armor is decorated on their inner sides. This is not par for the course for Super Robot Wars HG kits, and we don't see the same treatment on the Alteisen or the Gespens. The Weissritter has all these details most likely because the designers expected this kit to be displayed in a flying post, and these surfaces will be exposed. So there is an extra bit of consideration from them to have this kit look great when it's displayed. None of the Super Robot Wars HG kits are made for kids, and this kit continues that trend of having really sharp corners that can poke your eyes out if you do stupid things with it. Like the feet here, pointy, pointy, and very pointy. Or the tips of the wings, which are all very pointy and not a single safety flag is in sight. So this will look amazing out of the box without any need for you to sharpen up the points or the corners. This is especially good on a design like the Weissritter with a ton of sharp points. At the same time, you do need to be careful when handling this kit because bits like the antenna and the fins on the head can snap off because they're pretty long and they're attached with really narrow bases. A lot on this kit can break if you drop it on the floor or you smack something into it, so make sure to keep it away from physical hazards. Next, let's have a look at that backpack here that's so beautifully colored. The entire backpack can swing up like this to adjust the angle of the entire wing assembly. The wings themselves can move along this segment here that shifts but doesn't break the contour of the backpack. The wings can go from the closed position to fully open like this, and like this, and they do stop themselves on both ends so you don't have to fidget with them. The middle stabilizer here can also go from this lower position to the highest one like this. The thrusters here are all static and they don't move, which is going to keep this part from having too many moving bits. And there is enough here to help you pose that you probably won't need these nozzles to point here and there and everywhere anyway. And since we're here, let's look at the function of this backpack. The yellow parts here can be taken off from their spot here, and you can see that they left a bit of a gap here. I mentioned before that this kit really isn't made for kids, and this part here fully expects you to have the proper tools to take these yellow parts out because you can't do it with your hands. You're gonna need a pointed tool or something slim enough to slide inside and pry the parts off. They aren't on super tightly, but there really isn't anywhere to grip if you're using your hands and you're not using any tools. Once they're off, we can put on these little racks here that can house the split missile pods. You only get the racks here themselves, and the split missile pods themselves must be borrowed from the Gespens kit. These racks are tailored to the split missiles, so of course they fit very snugly. The connecting slits do jut out a little from the backpack like this, so it's probably better not to look at this a bit too closely. And here we have both the missiles on, and the racks are at a fixed angle so they don't tilt or rotate at all by themselves, and if you want to adjust them a little bit, it'll have to be through the backpack's own hinge. This is a later interpretation of the design because, according to the producer Takanobu Terada, fans kept asking where these split missiles came out of on the Weissritter because they can't see it anywhere on the robot in the illustrations. We first saw this updated interpretations in Super Robot Wars OG Gaiden, where the missile pods are the same ones that are used by the Gespens. It's very appreciated that this detail is accurately shown here on the new model kit, and this is also a nice bonus you get for having the Gespens alongside this kit as well. The other major weapon we have here are the 3-barreled beam cannons on the left arm. These are rare bits on this kit that aren't colored in plastic and also don't have stickers for them. These bits here are supposed to be white and they're just left uncolored when in the stock state. To deploy them, we have to take off the hand, and then we pull off this whole blue piece. Then, we replace it with this one here where the collar is opened up and the 3 barrels have extended. Don't think too hard about how these physically fit inside the wrist, just go with it. And that gives us the 3 beam cannons in their firing state. This of course parallels the Gespens' 3-prong gauntlet on its left arm, and it also echoes the Alteisen, which is the Weissritter's sibling from the ATX Project. You can have these permanently deployed like this and it actually won't obstruct the hand because, well, the left hand can't hold anything. See, the hands we get consist of these closed fists for the left and right side, and then these open palms for the left and right here, and after that, the other hands that we get includes this trigger finger for the right hand, and then this other holding hand that's also for the right hand, that's for the beam saber, and that's it. There are no functional hands for the left side. We do get 2 extras of the closed fist because of how the runners are repeated, but these don't really do anything and they don't have hand covers, and you probably don't need an extra pair of these anyway. But yeah, that's the deal. The left hand is only for posing, so you can have these guns out all the time and it's gonna be fine. These are meant to be the beam sabers as well, but they don't actually look the same, which is a liberty I'm okay with because it looks cool. So when the beam sabers are deployed, you can pull off any one of these barrels so it looks like it's being taken out for use. Then you can have the separate beam saber handle and you can put on a curved beam blade like this. These beam blades here are the curved ones that we've gotten occasionally on some MG kits like with the Wing Gundam Zero EW. The guest pens also use these as well. The handle slides very nicely into the gripping hand and the fit is just right so the sword isn't going to slip or roll. The gripping hand is helpfully at a forward tilted angle, which makes us really ready to do beautiful mid-swing poses. We do get 2 handles, but it's kinda stupid that we only have 1 holding hand, so even though we have 2 beam sabers with the blade out, there's really no way for the Weissritter to actually use them. It's kinda dumb. So this other one is more like a spare one in case you lose the first one. Finally, for weapons, we have the gigantic Oxtan launcher. This has the exclusive beige color on this kit, which isn't used on the robot itself, so the designers took the pains to do this part in its own color rather than just piggyback on the yellow. And even without stickers, you won't really notice the uncolored bits on this gun unless you're the sort of crazy superfan who's seen the illustrations hundreds and hundreds of times. The barrels at the very front here has one that's grooved on the top side and the one on the bottom here is smooth. The front portions doesn't have a seam because it's all one piece, but the barrel itself does have a seam running down the length of it, as does the little blue section right behind it. The seam really doesn't stand out a ton, but it is there. The white section hides the seam as a panel line, and the brown part doesn't have a seam, but it does have a pretty clear parting line. So while the Weissritter itself is entirely free of seams, I forgot to mention that earlier, the Oxtan launcher does need a bit of work cleaning up the middle line, which can look a little unsightly if we're being super picky. The gun itself is entirely static and there are no moving parts. It's pretty big, but it's not as heavy as you might think, and it helps that the handle here has a slit that fits into the trigger finger hand, so the gun will stay tightly in place without rattling. It's very important for a gun that extends so far out from the grip to be this stable. The entire hand offsets the grip away from the forearm, so the gun will run nicely along the side of the forearm. The ball joint is very comfortable holding the weight of the gun and it's not going to sag or anything. You do get a little bit of a range of movements of the gun, but practically speaking, with the wrist here, it's stuck to a single position. The gun is an essential part of the Weissritter, and I imagine this will be displayed with the kit like this for most people. It looks great and there's nothing wrong, but it can get a little strange if you want to have the beam saber out because there's nowhere to stow the gun, and we can only hold 1 weapon at a time with the right hand. I guess we can fall back to the excuse where the Weissritter pulls this gun out of thin air anyway in the game, so we can just pretend it's the same here on the kit. On to the articulation. The head doesn't really look up much at all, and it dips downwards a little bit. It can turn side to side until the pointy chin hits the collars on the sides. All SRW HG kits have amazing shoulders, and it's the same here with the wonderful swing out joint that goes out to here. There is a secondary joint to angle it up and down like this. The combination of the joints lets you raise the arms outwards a bit past 90 degrees. The fins on the shoulder armor are movable and they can fold up like this in one smooth motion. And they fan back outwards also in one continuous action, which is very elegant. The arms can swing all the way around if you avoid the wings. Like many other kits in the line, there is a rotation up here on the biceps. And then there's another rotation lower down at the elbow. The elbow joint itself doesn't manage a very special bend, maxing out at about 90 degrees. The wrists can pivot a little bit like this. The hands can be adjusted on their ball joint. The waist bends forward at the upper section and gives you a little bit of adjustments upwards and downwards. The waist rotates side to side at the base and is limited by the back skirt. The side skirts have this crazy and slightly over-engineered joint that can unlatch from the hip and it swings loose like this. I removed the upper torso because if it were on, it's just going to block everything and the extra joint doesn't actually move, but it is there. The side skirt is on a ball joint and it can swing outwards this much. The front skirts can swing up a little bit, but they're quickly blocked by the armor that's laid on top of them. The designers got around this by giving us an additional swing forward with this whole assembly here, which brings the front skirts pretty close to a 90 degrees swing upwards. And the back skirts can't move at all. The legs can swing outwards this much, very much limited by the side skirt, and they can kick forward this much, and backwards not a whole lot. They can be adjusted on the top of their thighs. The beautiful double jointed knee exposes additional details as it folds, and it manages something like 110 or 120 degrees. The armor at the front pivots a little bit. The feet are on a single ball joint, and then the toes can be folded up like this. Like any other Super Robot Wars HG kit, the articulation here is ambitious, but it doesn't necessarily give us a lot of crazy poses. Just as always, the arms here pose the greatest of them all, but much of the other parts are surprisingly locked in, mostly because of just all that crazy contour that's going on in the robot, and it's not going to allow a lot of crazy articulation. It'll get the job done, and there's more than enough here to give you almost any pose you want, but the movement here will be a bit more restrictive than the joints here will have you believe for how intricately engineered they are. If you've bought any other Super Robot Wars HG kit, this one is exactly like all the others, so don't be surprised. And surely some of you guys will be worried about the joints here, which are all polystyrene plastic, so it's not even a newer, tougher blend of KPS that Bandai claims will be more durable. So, will this kit age into a loose mess of joints down the line? Unfortunately, the answer is yes to a certain degree. The Alteisen, which I've now owned for 3 years, has really weak thigh joints here which can no longer hold up the weight of the legs. It's kind of the same story for the shoulders, which immediately surrender to gravity. It's really not pretty, and all the plastic has shrunken and lost enough of their flexibility in the 3 years that this kit has become quite difficult to pose. This has been the case with most of the SRW HG kits, and they will probably be the same here on the Weissritter, so it's just something we have to live with. It's fixable with many different options, but it will be something you need to fix down the line. And because this kit comes with an Action Base 7, naturally the bottom of it has a hole made for it. The hole here looks a little bit wide, but it actually still uses that same plain 3mm adapter, and it sits all the way down to the base of the peg, so it is supremely sturdy. The Action Base 7 has a very sturdy arm, and you've been seeing it throughout this review, and it has no difficulty holding up the weight of the Weissritter. For scale accuracy, the Hobby Clubhouse scale ruler puts the Weissritter at a clean 22 meters tall, so against the settings is 21.7 meters, this kit is very surely in 1/144 scale. Like I said at the beginning, even though they don't give these kits an explicit scale, they're almost always in 1/144 size in practice. And for size comparisons, here's the lower end benchmark, the entry grade RX-78. And here's the upper end benchmark, the entry grade New Gundam. The Super Robot Wars robots are all really large, so this dwarfs the RX-78 and it confidently stands nearly neck to neck with the New Gundam. None of the SRW HG releases so far have had any robots shorter than around this height, and they're always really tall and really bulky like this. With all that said, here's a Hobby Clubhouse 3-point verdict on the high-grade non-scale Weissritter. Number 1, it's impressively colorful. I have to emphasize just how hard it must be to make a design like this into the model that we now have in our hands. None of this was drawn with any consideration for model production, and they just drew whatever they felt looked cool, which is why it has all these crazy colors jumping back and forth and dotted all around. But the Super Robot Wars HG designers accomplished all this here, and on top of that, the kit is just as easy to put together as any other Bandai kit that you can buy. It doesn't have an excessive amount of parts, and the construction isn't annoying or convoluted or exhausting. What we have here takes a lot of skill and careful considerations from the designers, and it's great that it all came together into something that provides a lot of extra value to us without a lot of extra hassle. And number 2, it's very tall and it's very modern. We have the Kotobukiya Weissritter, and for many of us, that has been the look of the robot in our minds for many years. So it's refreshing to see this taller and slightly slimmed down new look of the robot. It's rebalanced to be less bottom heavy, but it keeps that stable, stocky bottom nonetheless. The height works well with the upper torso that flares outwards to the sides, and compared to the older Kotobukiya kit, this new HG kit does a better job of incorporating all the smaller details into all the sub-assemblies and to the overall contour of the Weissritter, whereas the older kit struggles a little bit and the small bits can feel like they're bolted onto the robot just haphazardly. All of the SRW HG kits have done a great job so far, giving us an interesting and modern revision of these classic designs, and the Weissritter is one of the best efforts so far. And number 3, this kit is jank free. This kit isn't completely devoid of slightly weird bits, particularly like how only the right hand holds weapons, but for everything else on the kit, from the way the rifle can be held so well to the ease of which you can pose everything on this kit doesn't fight you and it isn't hostile towards you trying to enjoy it. And you'd be surprised how we've been conditioned to be a little bit wary that whenever a kit looks as good as this one does, we kind of expect it to be a little bit temperamental and at least a little bit fussy. But no, this kit looks how we want it to look, and at the same time, it's gonna happily carry out its job doing great poses for us, and it'll try its best to cooperate. If you like the Weissritter any bit at all, this is a wonderful kit without any nasty surprises or annoying problems that you have to tolerate. It comes to you pretty darn complete and ready for you to enjoy, and I think that's worth a lot of praise for something that really isn't easy to make into something like this. So that's a review of the HG Weissritter, finally completing the pair with the Alteisen, and it comes to us as a great kit that any fan will be happy to have. Thank you so much for watching. Support the channel by becoming a member here on YouTube or over on Patreon, and come look us up on social media for updates on upcoming videos. Links are in the description below. This video was made with the support of the following members, including Skep, David Bitten, and Mac Nova. You guys are crazy for putting up with my schedule and still giving me your support, so thank you so much. And lastly, thank you for enjoying this video, and I'll see you next time.